Hello to the voting population of Australia. I am your election guide and guru, Chris Spyrou, and with my trusty co-host,
Tara Cassidy.
We're here to bring you what you need to know if you're not part of the millions of people who have already cast their vote and are heading to the polls today or tomorrow.
We'll answer your most common cues and bust those misconceptions so you know what to do come Saturday.
So without further ado, let's get into it.
Question 1. What will I see when I get to my voting or polling place?
Excellent question, Tara. Thank you so much for asking. So hopefully some snags on the Barbie, but that is not a guarantee anymore, as I have learnt the hard and tragic way last time I went to vote in a federal election. But what I can guarantee you will see as you rock up to your local school, church or community hall is a bunch of call flutes. So those are those big posters with candidates' faces and names on it, and maybe some volunteers repping their party or independence merch and holding how-to vote cards, which we will get into a little later.
And after you've lined up and gotten your name marked off the roll, you'll be given 2 sheets of paper that you'll fill out in one of those tiny cardboard booths. The smaller green piece of paper is where you'll see a list of names with little boxes next to them. These are the people wanting to become your electorate's federal member or MP.
Now, each electorate has just one MP and they sit in what's called the lower house. This is the green room in Canberra with the Prime Minister and opposition leader. There are 150 of these seats up for grabs at this election, so 150 MPs will be elected on Saturday. The party that can get 76 of them elected wins the majority of the House and then forms government, with their leader becoming the Prime Minister of Australia. On this green sheet, you have to number every single one of the boxes. Don't worry, there's not that many. And make sure you put a number 1 next to your favourite candidate and then a number 2 for your second fave and number 3 for your third fave and so forth and so forth and so forth.
Then we have the white ballot, the long piece of paper that barely fits in the booth. This will have the names of people looking to represent your state or territory in the upper house of government or the Senate. This is the red-coloured house that checks, amends, approves or rejects the laws that have been passed in the lower house, where your MP chills. Each state has 12 senators, while the territories have 2 each, and this is where you have the choice of voting above or below the line on that piece of paper.
Yes, and if you're in a rush and looking to get out of there as soon as humanly possible, you can vote above the line. If you choose that, you only have to number 6 boxes, putting a 1 next to the party whose senator or senators you want in the upper house the most. There's more boxes than 6. You don't have to fill them all out if you don't want to, but you actually might want to, and we'll get into why a little later.
Now, when you vote above the line, you're letting the party or group that you've chosen decide which of their candidates that you'll see listed below the line will get your vote, which is fine if you care just about that party and not the individual candidates themselves.
Yeah, if you do care about the individual candidates themselves, then you'll probably want to vote below the line. Here, you have to number at least 12 boxes, so not 6, 12, from 1 to 12, and you can do more if you want, but the incentive to doing this is because it gives you more control over where your vote goes. So what this looks like in practice, let's just say I love one of the Greens candidates on my white paper, but really hate the second and third, I would vote below the line to make sure that my vote goes to that candidate that I really, really like. If I voted above the line, all those candidates voted under the Greens, including the ones I don't like, could potentially get my vote and be up for the job.
Okay, so I've voted and I've popped my papers in the right boxes. How then is my vote counted and how do the preferences work?
So once polling places close at 6 p.m. on Saturday, AEC officials will open up and empty the big ballot boxes, sorting the green papers, so those for the House of Reps, the green room, into piles based on your first preferences.
So let's say Chris, Helen and I are all competing in your electorate to be your MP. 5 people have put a 1 next to my name, so my pile is looking good. 3 people have put a 1 next to Chris, so his pile's not too bad, but only 2 people put a 1 next to Helen's name. Unfortunately for Helen, she's in last place, so she gets knocked out of the race. But the green papers in her pile, the ballots, they live on because there's plenty more numbers on her paper that need to be taken into account. So they look at her pile and look at every single sheet to see which candidates people have listed at number 2. So remember, Helen had 2 sheets in her pile. We pick up the first one and it has Chris at number 2. So Chris, that goes onto your pile over there.
Woohoo!
There you go. We pick up the second one and it has me, so it joins my pile. Chris goes from 3 sheets to 4 and I've gone from 5 to 6, so I have got the majority and I win the seat.
Congratulations, Sarah. I'm very proud of you. Very proud of you. Look, in reality, though, there are more than 3 candidates in this race for the House of Reps, and this process of knocking out and redistributing continues until one candidate has over 50% of the votes. Now, a way that I like to visualize this is physically they pick up the ballot papers of the candidate that's been knocked out and they move their preferences along the way. So we keep building up these piles until we find a winner. In a nutshell, why this all matters is because while the candidate that you put at number 1 is very important, it also matters who you put at 2, 3 and 4 and so on, because those are the people who will get your vote next if your favourite is eliminated along the way. This is called preferential voting, and it means your preferences can still shape who gets a seat in the House of Reps, even if your top pick doesn't win.
Now, the Senate, that big piece of paper. Well, after the polls close, the Senate ballot boxes are also opened and all the papers unfolded, and this goes through both human and computer checks. Now, this count isn't about finding someone with the majority of votes, but someone who can reach a quota based on how many people voted and how many Senate spots need to be filled in your state or territory. Now, this one is a bit more complex. There's a whole formula. We won't bore you with it, but essentially, counting and preferences work very similar to the House of Reps in that the candidates with the lowest votes, they're gradually knocked out and your preferences keep moving until they can't anymore.
Now, this is where the exhausted vote comes into play. In the Senate, because you're not required to number every single box, like on the green paper, your preferences can run out if all the candidates you voted for don't get enough votes to fill their quota.
And this is why it's a really good idea to fill out all the boxes. So you still have some say in who the next best option is if your top pick doesn't get in. And like we said, this counting process, it's really complex. And at the last federal election, the final results for the Senate, they weren't declared until nearly 4 weeks after Election Day. For the House of Reps, though, you can expect results to start coming through on Election Day, with most electorates called within about 3 days.
Okay, let's talk something I love talking about, donkey votes. Bet you thought it was when you just cast a dodgy vote by not filling it out at all or picking a party as a piss take. Well, if you did, you are wrong. A donkey vote is actually where you rock up and number the candidates on your ballot paper from 1 to 6 in the same order that they appear on the sheet. It's also a donkey vote if you do it in reverse order, so 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This doesn't kill your vote. Despite what you might think, this doesn't mean your vote gets thrown away. In fact, it's still counted as valid because all the boxes have been numbered.
What does kill your vote, though, is when it is considered an informal vote. So putting a number twice on a sheet, leaving boxes that need to be numbered empty, writing your name on a ballot, or drawing something silly instead of filling it out. These are all informal and your vote will not count.
While we're on the topic of misconceptions, let's unpack a few more that get thrown around every election and figure out what's true and what's not. Number 1, preference deals.
Okay, so this is the idea that a party that doesn't get into power can give all their votes to another party to help them get in through some kind of backdoor deal. Now, firstly, these preference deals in this format, they do not exist anymore, and only you can control who you preference and where your vote goes.
Yeah, so this is a historical hangover and the law has since changed. It actually changed in 2016. Nowadays, when we talk about preference deals, it's more to do with how one party will organise to list another on their how to vote cards. These cards show you how they would like you to number the boxes on your ballots. You, of course, don't have to listen to that advice at all. It serves only as a guide. But in all fairness, they do show you which parties or candidates your pick is most likely to work with if it needed to. So if I look at the how to vote cards the Libs put out in my electorate, they want themselves at number 1, no surprises there. Then they want the One Nation candidate at 2, an independent at 3, and the Greens very last.
Yeah, and like we said, guys, preferential voting here in Australia, that's the main thing you need to remember.
Number 2, only vote for the major 2 parties. Your vote for anyone else or any other party is a waste.
That is not true. So it might be in places like the US and UK, but not here in Australia. And anyone that's telling you it is has got it wrong. Like we explained earlier, here in Oz, we use preferential voting, meaning you do decide where your vote goes. And even if they don't get in your top pick, your next choice, or your next choice and your next choice matters. Every number you put on your card matters for who gets into power, who gets a seat at the table, and who actually gets funded for their next campaign. So if they get 4% of votes or more, they actually get a certain amount of funding for their future election campaigns.
Number 3, it's not worth voting for independents and minor parties. They don't have the power to change anything.
Ba-bow. And of course, this is the one that's often perpetuated by the major parties because, well, it benefits them. Now, we have minor parties and independents in a number of our House of Rep and Senate seats right now. In fact, there are 19 in the House of Reps, so think the Greens, Katter's Australian Party, Centre Alliance, Independents, and 22 in the Senate. One Nation, Jackie Lambie, United Australia Party, etc. You get it.
Again, because of preferential voting, your vote will go towards them. And if the party doesn't get in or they can't form government on their own, they can get a seat in the House of Reps or Senate, which can have an impact on who holds the power for important decisions. All in all, don't just listen to your friend, your dad, your mum, or some rando on socials. And if you don't know which party or candidate to pick, do go to one of those many voting tools that are out there that quiz you on your own views, interests, and beliefs and let you know which party or candidate you align with the most. That will be a massive help ahead of tomorrow.
And that brings our How to Vote explainer to an end. Thank you, Chris, and to you listening, happy voting.
Listener.